Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so a cartoon for marketing video, not bad, but I think we can do better. So my next presentation is about a software that I've recently written. I'm still working on it. It's called CoachFX for a customer called Sidelines Sports, and they have already been a customer of mine, I think 1.5 or 2 years ago, where we did a software called Presentation Builder. And the Presentation Builder is a software that's being used by coaches where they have this list of video clips that they add to the software, and you can see them on the right-hand side. And these are individual small clips, and then they compose them together to a final video where they show just the important scenes of a game, of a match, and they can add subtitles to it. Some graphic elements, they can pause or slow down or make it quicker, stuff like that, a lot of editing. And talk about marketing, I mean, if you have a really attractive application, then you have another advantage. You can immediately use it as part of your marketing, and you can put the... Somebody's talking into my presentation. Okay. And you can use the attractive UI and use it for marketing purposes. And that's what these guys did when we were done with the presentation builder. So let me just play the video. So you could see they have not just one application, but multiple. And one feature that they actually seem to have in this software inside the presentation builder is this, where they can add arrows and circles, graphical elements to the video. But that is actually missing inside the presentation builder. So as a follow-up project this year, we started work on something that would allow them to also add these elements. And this software is called CoachFX, and I'm in the middle of implementing this. So this is really super live now, and I will try to show you the application. And you can see actually some of my files are still marked not even committed yet. So this is fresh off the bench. Let me launch it, hide this a little bit, get it out of the way. Okay. So this is CoachFX, and the starting point for this software is that you take an image from the video, a still, and then you add graphical elements to it. So first of all, let me increase the animation duration, the total time that I want to add. And in this scene, the coach might, for example, try to tell his players that, or her players, that there is an opportunity in this area. So come on, guy, you could have run here, right? So let's change the color and the pattern for this line a little bit and give it a different color. And then I can duplicate this element just like you can do in other, like in Keynote or PowerPoint. Let's change that color again to something yellow. Let's duplicate that line again. Okay, and I'm giving it, I don't know, a green color like this. And you can see that the primary color of the object is also reflected in here. And now what I can do is I can say play, and this creates a JavaFX timeline object and puts these objects on the timeline, adds a couple of key values and keyframes, and then animates it like this. Okay. But the coach might have also said that, well, these are, okay, the coach might want to say that these would have been 3 different options, but the best option would have been to run this way. For example, I'm not a coach. I don't know what they talk about. I'm a programmer, crying out loud. So this one also, we give this pattern, we also make it red, and this can also be animated. Okay, and then the coach might say, just to make sure, this option would have been the best, for example. Okay, so he can edit this right here. Let's make this bigger. This also gets a nice background color, like a blue. And you can change the font size and the alignment and so on. Okay, but then the coach, maybe he wants to say, actually he wants to put everything on different places on the timeline. Not all the lines should show up at the same time. So the last one, for example, this guy, this should be drawn later. This should be drawn here. And this text box should show up later. So now you see those lines are drawn first, then the time cursor reaches the next position saying this should have been drawn, and then the text appears. But then the coach might also say, well, you know, this player here, there's a problem with this guy, okay? You have to really watch out for that guy, okay? And then if that animation plays, sorry for that, you always have to wait 10 seconds, then draw this line, and then, you know, watch out for that guy. But maybe that guy, in the meantime, he moved all the way from here to there. So let's color that line. I don't know why the guy would do that. I mean, he cannot be that fast. And so let's also put this here to the end. Okay, let's play it again. Those 3 lines. Then the next option, then the comment from the coach, the spotlight, and the player running this way. But now you see there's a little problem with that black line. The line is in front of these players. And this is something that I've been working on last week. And if you follow me on Twitter, you see that I was looking into different options. But the one option I'm working so far is clipping. So you can pick a different tool up here, and you can now select this player and draw a clip around it. Ignore the box that shows up. Okay, so now the line is behind that player. Like that, and the same should happen here and here. Okay, and now the line is behind these guys, and I can actually move this around. And if I play this, this will look nice. Spotlight and the black line. And there are a couple of other graphical objects that I can add. For example, just a rectangle, a circle. This can be resized, or a triangle, and even a pen line. A pen line allows you to draw a line like multiple points like this. Yeah. And even that can get animated. All right. So back to the presentation. How much time do I have left? A little bit about animation concepts. The total timeline is something that starts at a duration of 0 and has like 10 seconds. And then each of the objects in there has like a time where it appears, which is T0. Then at T1, the in animation finishes. Then the object is visible for some time. And then at T2, the object disappears again. And when it reaches T3, the object will become invisible again. So if, for example, you have a line, you want to animate this, then in JavaFX, you have these properties for start X, start Y, and end X, end Y. And you can just create properties and bind them to the line objects. And if you want to just show or hide this error, all you need to do is define 2 key values where you change the visible property from true to false. And in this case, we also add 2 keyframes. And keyframe, the first one will happen at T1. And okay, I used a different numbering here actually. So T1 is T0 in the previous slide. Sorry about that. So here I start with 1. So when it appears at T1, the property will be set to true. When it disappears at T4, the property will be set to false. Okay, the problem now with animating this object, you cannot directly animate end X and end Y because then you're changing those values. But when the animation stops, you want to immediately go make the line go back to the original placement. So you have to introduce properties that will be animated by the timeline. So in this case, there will be an animated end X and an animated end Y. And we are updating those properties, and that will give us the animation. And so I'm introducing these two additional properties, end X and Y, simple double properties. And then in our code, I hope you can read this, but I'm binding either the animated end X or the regular end X property to the end X property of the line. And I'm doing the same thing with the end Y property. And this binding fires and gets updated whenever the animated property changes or the regular Y property changes, or the Boolean playing property changes. So the moment the player starts, it will use the animated property and not the normal one. Now for the animation of those properties, you have to add a few more values. So there are like 4 key values for end X and 4 key values for end Y. And again, we will have those 4 keyframes for T1, T2, T3, and T4. And I'm adding all of them to the timeline like this. Now it gets a little bit more complicated if you want to animate, for example, a curve, a quad curve in this case, because a quad curve is defined by a control point. And if you want to animate this, you have to use a lot of complicated math, I guess. I guess you could do it some way, but you will need to update the endpoint and the control point at the same time. So, but what I did is I simply, the moment the animation starts playing, I'm replacing the curved line, the quad curve object, with a path object. And then the path object consists of a lot of elements. The first one being a move to, and then a line to, a line to, a line to, and so on, and until it reaches the end. And that will give us the animation for the curved line. And the funny thing is, this path with all these elements looks exactly like the quad curve in the end. You will not see a difference because at the end of the animation, I'm replacing the path with the actual quad curve. But you don't see that. There's no difference between these two objects. The code for that obviously is a little bit more complex, but still not rocket science. I basically have a counter double property, and I'm listening to it. And whenever that counter property changes, I'm adding elements to the animated path object. And then for those key values and keyframes, all I need to do is I need to animate the value of the counter. And the counter goes from the value for the counter is within the interval of 0 and 1. So depending on the refresh rate and the repaints, we get more or less frames and more or less elements inside the path. But usually I get like 16 or 32 elements inside the path for curved line. Okay, now Outlook, what I'm really trying to do for the clipping is I want to integrate OpenCV, which I already did. And then I want the user to be able to draw a clipping rectangle around a player, and then OpenCV will be used to remove the background, which is basically green screen technology stuff. And all of that is available in OpenCV. But since OpenCV is not really a Java first-class citizen, it's really hard to understand how all of this works. But I have some context, some people helping me out. So I do make a little bit of progress. Yep, that's it. That was CoachFX. Thank you.